Hey everyone, welcome to the latest installment of The Way It Is, and I'm your host, Luca Anlofato, with the Luca Anlofato Real Estate Group at RE/MAX Service First Realty. And now today we are fortunate to be at the Kingston Humane Society, and I have to sort of embarrassingly admit, this is my first time here, but we're fortunate to have Gord Hunter, the Executive Director of the Humane Society, who's graciously donated some time on the day that you're not open to the public today. Yeah. But you've got a host of volunteers in here today. So welcome, Gord.
Thanks, Luca, and great to have you here. It's funny how many people I know when I took this job who said to me, I've never been out to the Humane Society. We are in kind of an unusual area. It's a great spot for us because we've got an off-leash area at the back for the dogs and actually 2 off-leash areas. And it's a great spot for us to be in terms of being on a transit line and stuff like that. But it is kind of a little out of the way.
Yeah.
But it's, it's what we have right now. We are over capacity all the time, so we're thinking about a new building and what we would need for that new building. We're kind of in very early stages.
Right. So correct me. It says the Kingston Humane Society opened in 1884.
That's correct. Yeah. Next year's our 140th, I believe. Yeah. I started on our 135th anniversary, and the city of Kingston had a big proclamation and a day for us. And yeah, we are the oldest humane society in Canada. Montreal's Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, SPCA, is I think a year older than us, but in terms of humane societies, we're the oldest.
Wow, that I would never have thought that, to go back that far in time, and that pets and care of animals was would have been top of mind, I guess.
And it was a lot of agricultural animals at that time. It was a lot of horses and things like that. And actually, if you're downtown around on Brock Street, right across from the post office, there's an old water fountain there that was originally and it says on it was a Kingston Humane Society fountain that was put in by I believe the people who ran the Humane Society in those days to allow horses to grab a drink. So and it's still there.
So Gord, you've been here for 4 years, started in 2019. You got your feet wet in 2019, and then whammo, the pandemic hit. And that must have just been incredible.
It was strange. It was strange for everybody. I know none of us have ever faced that before, unless you're around for the Spanish flu, which none of us were. So it was, fly by the seat of your pants. In fact, I can remember mentioning to the staff, there's this thing that we're seeing a lot more information about that may affect us. We have to be ready for it. And when things started to close down, we went from 30 animals in foster care, which was pretty normal for us, around 25 or 30 animals, to over 70 animals in foster care in 48 hours. Because at that point, none of us knew if we were going to be open, we were going to be able to adopt animals out. We didn't know how long this thing was going to last. So we had to get animals out of the building because we thought we were going to have to shut the whole building down and send everybody home. Mm-hmm. As it turned out, we were able to keep our animal care staff working. We sent our administrative staff to work from home. Our managers kind of worked in a rotating system where they were in the building. But that first kind of reach out to our foster volunteers and to volunteers in general to help us was incredible. The support we got from the city of Kingston was just like something I could never have imagined.
Well, and I mean, I certainly not to diminish what the frontline workers do, but at a certain point, this is a bit of an essential service, right? It's not like these animals can go unattended or anything like that. They do need care. They need constant supervision or whatever you have, right? So, I mean, at a certain point in time, you need to have some kind of skeleton staff here.
Absolutely. We were declared an essential service, like many of the people that work in healthcare. We provide healthcare for animals. We're the pound services provider for the city of Kingston. So any stray animals come to us. And animals at large that the bylaw officers bring in, they come to us. So we had to stay open. One of the things that we noticed going forward from that first few weeks is we might have a new business model here where we can actually increase our capacity by using more fosters. So we went from 30 animals in foster. Today, we have 150 animals in foster, which is kind of normal now. We have a foster coordinator who works full-time. Natasha does an amazing job. She's also a registered veterinary technician. Wow. So that's enabled us to increase our capacity because our capacity in the building is 144.
Yes.
Yesterday, I did our numbers. We had 237 animals in care. So that's well above our capacity. We have operated above our capacity, in the 150s and 160s where, there's animals in offices, there's animals in bathrooms, there's animals in corners. Now we can move those animals into foster care, and what we find is they're healthier. We see much more of their natural behavior here. Let's just use an example of a stray cat that's 3 years old. We don't see that behavior of that cat because it's in a kennel.
Right.
We see whether it's either generally nice or maybe a little frightened,
Right.
but we don't see its behavior in the house. Whereas now in foster, we see their natural behavior, so we can tell people who are thinking about adopting Fluffy, yeah, actually, Fluffy loves to play with balls and loves to curl up on the couch and watch TV.
Now, during the pandemic, though, I mean, one of the positive side effects was people were going out and getting pets. Were they not? I mean,
They were.
But were they? Did you find they were getting like new from breeders, or they weren't getting rescue animals?
No, they came to us not in huge numbers. They did go to breeders as well. And what we saw in the last probably 18 months is once people started getting back to their normal lives, animals started coming back in droves. Not just us, but the entire animal welfare community across Canada has seen an incredible upsurge in surrendered animals, abandoned animals, neglected animals, because people didn't anticipate, oh, right, I'm going to have to go back to work.
You know, I'm a realist, and I know that myself, I'm not able to care for a cat or a pet the way I would feel a pet needs to be cared for.
Sure.
I mean, because I say oftentimes to people, it's a bigger commitment than a child. I mean, a child, you can, at certain age, you can get them into daycare, you can get them into school and everything like that, activities, but a pet needs, like I said, constant supervision or walking and things like that. And I found, I mean, I was listening again to the CBC this morning, and someone donated 1,700 pounds of dog food or something to the Renfrew shelter or something like that. But now the flip is happening where people can't afford to have their pets any longer, given the cost of everything. So is that, you're seeing that double whammy?
We're seeing that as well. So I would say it's kind of slowed down a bit now, but between September and February, once a week at least, we would get a call from a local veterinary clinic saying someone has brought their animal in. They can't afford what's required for this animal to get healthy. They want to surrender it to you if you're willing to take on the cost. So that, along with just inflation in general, has created an additional cost burden for the Humane Society. Because, I mean, if it's an animal that we can save, we don't want to say no. We're all animal lovers here, so we do our very best. So when those calls happen, we take those animals in. But it's people that hadn't anticipated the cost of care for an animal. And you're right, we say it's a lifelong commitment.
Absolutely.
If you're lucky, you get 15 or even 20 years with an animal. So that's something that you need to look at and go, okay, so this is for the next 2 decades. This animal's part of my life, and you have to make sure you have room for that.
And there's some significant upfront costs too when you acquire the animal. I mean, in terms of shots or necessary shots and necessary this and that. And you had a previous life where you were involved with St. John's Ambulance. You were the director there, and then Martha's Table at one point. So why the flip all of a sudden to? I mean, I know you say you're an animal lover, but was essentially the sort of the driving force behind it?
My path in charitable management or not-for-profit management started in the early 2000s. I worked for an organization called the World Breast Cancer Organization and moved into an interim director role because there was illness from the original executive director, and really enjoyed it and found that my skill set kind of meshed with what was required, and it really was, kind of engaging with the community, selling them on how important the organization is, and getting them to invest in that, whether it's donations or volunteering. So in 2006, I went to Ottawa and I was a capital campaign manager for the Ottawa Humane Society. So they had started a capital campaign for a new building, which they're in now on West Hunt Club. But originally they were down on Champagne in Little Italy in Ottawa, which is where I worked. So I worked to help them get to a point where they had about $2 million of the 10 million they needed. I think it ended up being 14 million that they got. But for 2 years I was there. But I missed home. I missed Kingston. My life kind of changed. So I wanted to come back to Kingston. So I came back here, started at Martha's Table, moved over to St. John Ambulance. And one of the things at St. John Ambulance I really enjoyed was the therapy dog program. So I was contacted by the Humane Society, asked if I was interested in a role here, and I said, yeah, absolutely. So I moved over here in 2019, and I think this is definitely where I would like to retire from. I'm at that point now. I'm 59. I turned 60 in June. I'd love to be able to leave here with the Humane Society in better shape than when I started, and maybe in a new building too. That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Well, obviously, from the sounds of it, more space is always needed, right? To give them.
We are cramped in here for sure.
Now, I want to get back to that foster program
Sure.
that you have. So, is that just an interim stopgap measure? Do these or this foster they keep these pets indeterminately? How does that?
So they keep the animals as long as we can until we find them a forever home. The foster volunteer, the typical foster volunteer, will take on the animal, really not knowing an end date, just with the fact that that animal needs to be in foster care, and they'll take care of it until we find someone who's willing to adopt the animal. We also offer those foster volunteers the first opportunity to adopt. So let's say they've had the animal for 4 months and they come back to us and say, you know what, we really would like this animal. Maybe the animal was there because it needed care, because it had a bit of a medical issue, and it's now ready to go up for adoption. And they say, you know what, we want to keep Fluffy. That's great. We've already put them through the application process, so we know they'll be a good owner. And we lose them as a foster sometimes. Sometimes they adopt the animal and they continue to foster other animals for us. So, but either way, it's a good home for them. Otherwise, the animal will then go up for adoption on our website, and people will look and go, okay, I want to put an application for this animal. And then what happens is we often arrange an initial virtual meeting between the foster parents and the potential adopter. They can ask questions and stuff. And if that goes well, then we bring the people in to do a meet and greet with the animal in person.
Right.
And assuming that goes well, the animal goes home with that person.
Now, there has to be some vetting of the foster care people too,
yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
you just can't have random people grabbing
Yeah,
these pets and not knowing what they're doing with them, obviously. So there's a bit of vetting that way as
We
well.
put them through an application process for sure. We ask for references, veterinary references. It's a pretty stringent application process, as is our adoption application process.
Right. And that's all at their own expense as well, the care for the animal? Wow.
Yeah. Well, sorry. We when they're in foster care, we cover their food and medical.
Okay.
For sure.
I don't want to make this sort of very somber and like that, but I mean, at a certain point in time, if an animal is not adopted or not fostered, where's the end line for this? Or I mean, and I'm not going to use the word, but I mean,
Nope.
but I mean, again, just maybe speak to that in terms of
I'm
what this
really
process.
glad you asked that, Luca, because to be honest with you, that's probably the question I get the most. How long can an animal stay before you will decide on humane euthanasia? We don't have a time limit. We had recently an animal that was adopted after being with us for 505 days.
Wow.
So as long as they're healthy and their behavior is good and they're not aggressive or dangerous, we'll keep them as long as it takes. One of the things that I said when I started this role is we will not ever euthanize an animal for time or space. If we get too full, we'll find a place for them. We'll use our fosters. As I said, our fosters are incredible, and we've really grown that program. And we will never euthanize an animal for time. They will be with us as long as they're healthy and not a danger to other animals or to our staff. And we work really hard with those dogs that might be aggressive when they come to us. And our staff is pretty incredible and dedicated. And they will work and work and work until that animal that maybe came in frightened and dangerous is now just a cuddle bug who sits with us and is adopted out to a family and lovely. Most times we can fix those things. Occasionally we're directed because an animal has had a significant bite history in the public.
Right.
We're directed by either police or bylaw officers that animal has to be destroyed. And that's part of our role as an open shelter.
Well, and you just opened that door too. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of animals that will come into your care from situations where someone becomes incarcerated or abuse, right, or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, apart from the obvious challenges, speak to that a little bit. How many of your population here are come from a broken home or a situation where the animal was abused or treated?
It's hard to put a percentage number on that, Luca, but I would say that most of our animals come to us as strays, animals that people have surrendered because they can't handle them anymore. Either that's, they can't handle the financial resources required, or they can't handle the animal because it's changed its behavior pattern, or they come in from provincial animal welfare services where they're investigating abuse, specific animal abuse, or neglect or abandonment. So there's no perfect animal. There isn't anywhere, to be honest with you. All animals have, different personalities. We get a lot of the most difficult ones. Like I said, our staff is incredible. They work incredibly hard and they're diligent and dedicated. They will work with an animal until we can get it to the point where we're comfortable adopting it out. And like I said, occasionally an animal comes to us that has had such a significant bite history that it's just not safe to adopt out anymore. And sadly, we have to make an end of life decision for that animal. It happens rarely. We are by far the lowest euthanasia rate for animal shelters in Ontario, well below the provincial average. And we continue to do our best to keep it that way.
Is there any credence to the adage, there's no bad pet, only bad pet owners?
Yeah, absolutely. Every animal has an opportunity to thrive and survive if given the right support and training. Absolutely. You never see an animal come to us that it's just a bad seed or whatever. They're not. They're often, if they're aggressive, they're trained that way, or they're so mistreated that they're defensive. And again, our staff works really hard to get behind those defenses, get behind the reason for their behavior, and hopefully resolve it. So this is our administrator. He's so photogenic, and he has a brother who's a black and white. They're called Landseer Newfoundlands.
Wow.
But they came from a backyard breeder who really mistreated them, kept them in tiny little cages. When they came to us, the smell was just horrific. But look at them now. I mean, they're beautiful, and they're such lovely dogs. That's one of the refrains here is if we could just have animals, because we kind of hate people. And it's not true, but
Well, you never know sometimes.
so these cats would all be ready for adoption, and so we allow the public to come in and view these two rooms for cats and that ward for dogs.
Right.
But we only reopened to the public mid-February.
You'd mentioned if an animal hasn't been spayed or neutered, you automatically take care of that.
Yeah.
So that leads me to the question, which I didn't get to, which you can probably speak to. Operating costs must be massive between veterinary bills and food costs and everything.
Yeah.
What's your operating budget? If you don't mind me, sir.
No, I don't mind at all. It's all our stuff. It's one of the things we're very transparent about is our revenue is about $2 million or so, which has gone up, which is great, but our expenses are about $2 million. We had to come up with more revenue. Part of that was we came up with a 50-50 draw, an online 50-50 draw, which has raised a tremendous amount of money for us because we needed it. We have that many more animals to care for, and surgeries and food and medicines, everything's gone up in price. Everything costs
And in
more.
my notes, you're not funded or subsidized by anything. This is all people that donate and give money, right?
That's correct. 70% of the money that comes in here is donated by members of the community. The other 30% probably accounts for a contract we have with the city of Kingston to provide pound services. But that's a contract. It's not like we're getting specific funding. We work for that. We provide services to the city of Kingston for that. This one might get loud. We'll go down through the A ward here. Step there.
Yep. Wow.
So that's a really typical dog ward. We have 4 dog wards. 3 of them have outdoor availability like this. Generally what happens is the staff will take the dogs, bring them out here, clean the inside kennels, get their food ready for them, bring them back in, let them eat, clean out here, move to the next ward, same thing. And those kennels, you can hear how loud it is. Ideally, we would love kind of a building that had soundproofing, didn't have,
Yeah.
fencing, had plexiglass, because one of the things the dogs will do if they're anxious, they'll chew on this, right? And they can break teeth.
Right.
So if we can, in a new building, our goal would be to have plexiglass doors, a lot of soundproofing to dampen the sound, because the more they bark, the louder they get, the more anxious they get, and the more difficult their stay is.
Yeah.
We want to make their stay as good as possible for as long as they're here.
So presumably there's no more room to add on to here or anything like that.
Definitely not.
How many square feet are here?
We have about 8,700 square feet here.
Yeah. A little on the small side.
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
is. Yeah, for sure.
It's all very clean though, that's for
It
sure.
is, yeah. We came here at the right time. So this is another cat room that was originally part of our availability for adoptable cats. We've kind of used this now for cats that are waiting for medical treatment or might not be quite ready for adoption yet. Jaden's one of our animal care attendants.
So you must have a relationship with St. Lawrence College then, the
We
Animal
do,
Care
actually, yeah.
Technology Program
Yeah,
and
so
whatnot?
we work with their veterinary assistant and veterinary technology program. We have 2 classrooms that we lease out to them as well.
Wow, that's awesome.
This is the kitchen where all the food's prepped, all the cleaning's done. It's the most recently renovated room. It was just the dingiest room, and it had not been attended to in terms of construction, renovations, and things. So when I came in, I said, I went to the board and I said, we got to do something about that room because it's the room they spend most time in for our animal care workers. So it was just recently renovated, and we're quite happy with the way it is. And we put in a commercial dishwasher as well, which makes a huge difference. Because before they were washing everything by hand.
Oh, wow. There are some other species, right, that you
we
have?
a lot of rabbits, rats, sometimes birds, basically any domestic animal.
So no exotic pets or anything
No,
like
we
that?
can't. We don't have the ability to care for exotic pets, so we will often get in touch with people who can. We'll hold them here for a few hours or a day, and then they'll come and pick them up, and we'll transfer them to them. We have a great relationship with Sandy Pines as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is one of the classrooms.
Wow, yeah.
This is the one that's used the most. So this is the veterinary assistant program will come in here. So they'll learn how to handle properly. And part of the benefit of being here is they can go and get animals and bring them in here. And the instructors can teach them how to handle them properly, how to clean them, how to wash them, how to groom them. All the stuff that the veterinary assistants would need to learn to go out in the public and work in a clinic or in a shelter. And then the veterinary technicians, it's a little more advanced. It's an extra year, and they learn a little bit more about the veterinary side of things, how to give inoculations and vaccines and inspections for injuries or medical conditions, things like that.
I dare say my brother would have been here at one point in time. His very first program was at St. Lawrence College in Animal Care Technology. Yeah.
During the academic year, they do some spays and neuters for us under the direction of Dr. Laura Prochik, and they have another veterinarian too. I haven't had a chance to meet yet. But
And just on a sort of off tangent, but I mean, we hear every day the struggles with the medical profession and the lack of doctors and everything. I think that's happening the same as in the veterinarian field, correct?
Yeah. We've really struggled. If we've had a veterinary technician, a registered veterinary technician move on, we've had trouble replacing them. They are like gold in the business. And in fact, there were some clinics that were offering things like signing bonuses and guaranteed contracts and stuff, which, as a not-for-profit, we can't match. So we have to kind of convince them in other ways, that we're a bit different. We provide, that sense that you're helping the community, that sort of thing. But it has been a struggle and continues to be a struggle across Ontario.
Can you speak to why that is? I mean, obviously in the medical profession, we understand burnout, and the pandemic put a lot of people through situations that they were just, they got overworked and all that. We got understood all those stresses. I mean, I guess those same pressures exist in the animal world.
I think this was more about the academic programs weren't able to continue the way they had under the rules of the pandemic. I know that there was several times here where we couldn't have students in the building because one of the students had COVID. So the whole cohort had to stay out of the building for a period of time. So they lost, I think, when I spoke to them at one point, they might have lost the better part of an academic year. So there was a backup. They didn't have the students that they normally would have, and there was a huge demand because people were getting these COVID pets, and suddenly there was more demand and fewer staff members to accommodate that. So this is our X-ray machine.
Okay.
So it allows us to do some essential diagnostics. If animals come to us with an injury, but we can't quite figure out what it is, we'll do an X-ray. And dental X-rays on cats, older cats, dentals are probably the biggest issue.
Would you have animals from here going over there for their training?
Yeah. Sometimes they do some spays and neuters for us under the direction of Dr. Laura Prochik. It helps their veterinary technicians because they'll be working in the field where they're providing support to a veterinarian, whether it's in the surgery suite itself or preparation for surgery, that sort of thing. So if we can help them get that experience, it benefits us and it benefits them.
Right. And we have to plug that Kingston Humane Society, you're having your, how many years is this?
It's the third year. It's our K9s, Cats, and Caddies golf tournament at Loyalist Golf and Country Club. June 2nd, we're still looking for people to register. They can register online on our website, kingstonhumanesociety.ca. It's $140 a golfer, which is, I think, pretty low comparatively.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love about our tournament is nobody, puts in ringers or anything like that. It's just a great time. We don't give out a trophy for the lowest score. Everybody's just there to help out the animals. So we have great door prizes, and usually I have a friend who works for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. They give us usually a pretty cool raffle prize. We have, all kinds of prizes that people can, purchase a ticket and win. Leon's local, Chris McKercher, lost their dog, so he decided he wanted to sponsor the tournament this year. So he's come on board in a big way, and that helps us tremendously, because if he can sponsor some of our costs, then more of the money from the golfers goes to help the animals.
That's awesome. There's holes to sponsor, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's holes to sponsor. There's sponsorships available, and of course, there's still some foursomes for golf too. So it's a blast. We have dogs at the course. Loyalist is great about letting us bring out some adoptable dogs. So we have some dogs out there that people can hang out with in between the front nine and the back nines.
Well, that's amazing. Gord, listen, pleasure meeting you.
Really nice to meet you.
Pleasure being here, and thank you so much for enlightening us on your world and what happens here.
Happy to. Great to talk to you.